Greetings, everyone. My name is Emmanuel, and I would like to welcome you to our program today. We are continuing with our series on rebuilding a new Africa through decentralization. And our topic today is: in a democracy, all Christians are expected to participate in politics. In a democracy, all Christians are expected to get involved in politics. Now, what is politics? Politics could be defined as the affairs of the city-state or the affairs of the nation. And what then is democracy? According to Abraham Lincoln, when he gave his Gettysburg speech in 1863, he defined democracy as the government of the people, by the people, and for the people. There are two types of democracy. One is direct democracy that was practiced during the ancient Greek civilization. In this type of democracy, all the citizens participated in the management of the affairs of their city-states. Women, children, slaves, and foreigners could not participate in politics. Only citizens were allowed to participate in politics. Now, many countries are not applying that form of democracy any longer. Today, nations are applying what we call a representative form of democracy. Through this type of democracy, the people elect their representatives. So in a democratic society, power is with the people. Power is vested, in the people. The people rule in a democratic system. So it is not good for Christians in democracies around the world to say we are not going to participate in politics, because power belongs to the people in democratic nations. And if Christians do not participate in politics, other religious groups will. And when Christians are not sitting at the table, when they are not participating in politics, other people will make laws that will affect the interests of Christians. That is why we as Christians, we must participate in politics so that we can define our interests and we can defend our interests. So in a democratic society, power belongs to the people, and Christians constitute part of the citizenry of our different nations. And because we are citizens of our different nations, we have to participate in politics. Now, there are three ways through which we can participate in politics. You don't need to be in government to participate in politics. You see, in democracies, there are three branches of government. We have the legislative branch that makes the law. We have the executive branch that executes the law. And we have the judicial branch that interprets the law. So our representatives that we vote, they work in these three branches of government to manage the affairs of our nations and our communities. So that is why Christians cannot stand idly by and say, we will not participate in politics, because we have to defend our interests. We have to define our own policies in our communities and nations and then defend those ideas. So one of the ways through which Christians can participate in politics is through the payment of our taxes. So paying your taxes is a political activity. So when we pay our taxes to the government will use that money to implement projects that will bring development in our communities and in our nations. So when we don't pay our taxes, we are indirectly impoverishing our nations, because the government will not have the money to embark on developmental projects. That is why we as Christians, we must pay our taxes. The second way through which we can get involved in politics is through public debates. So through public debates, we can push for kingdom ideas in our communities and nations. Kingdom ideas like justice, righteousness, equality, honesty, hard work, faithfulness, service. These are powerful ideas that can bring transformation in our communities and nations. So when we get involved in public debates, as citizens in our different countries, we are expected to be involved in civic participation, public debates about ideas, because our communities and nations are governed by ideas, and there are democratic ideas in the Bible. For example, the idea of all men are created equal. That is a biblical idea. The idea of justice, the idea of righteousness. You see, governments are established on the principles, the ideas of righteousness and justice. So without righteousness and justice in a nation, that nation will find it difficult to prosper. So justice is an important aspect, in the development of our nations. And we as Christians, the Bible tells us to promote righteousness and justice in our communities and nations. That is why the Bible says that when the righteous are in government, the people rejoice. But when the wicked beareth rule, the people suffer. So as Christians, we have to get involved in politics, because we are influencing, the ideas of the world with kingdom ideas. We have to participate in politics. Just imagine if Esther was not in the palace. Haman and his people could have destroyed the Jews. Just imagine if Moses did not receive, the political training that he got while he was in the palace. It would have been difficult for Moses to liberate the children of Israel when they were in captivity in Egypt. Joseph is another example. Take Daniel. If Daniel was not in the palace to interpret the dreams of Nebuchadnezzar, what could have happened to the Jews? Remember, God gave Daniel a lot of dreams concerning the kingdom gospel that we are preaching today. Just imagine if Nehemiah was not in the palace. The Jews would not have constructed the wall that protected Jerusalem. So we as Christians have to get involved in politics. We have to participate in politics. Because the Bible says, if the righteous are ruling, the people will rejoice. Politics is not a bad game. Politics is not a dirty game. It is people, sinners, who kill people, who oppress people. The art or science of politics itself is something that is good. Because God is the one who created government. And God is the one who created the institution of the church. So as Christians, we have to get involved in politics through public debates. And as Christians, we have to get involved in politics through the payment of our taxes. And the third point is that as Christians, we have to vote for our elected officials. Remember, in a democracy, power is with the people. Power belongs to the people. So we have the power to re-elect good leaders and reject or vote out bad leaders. So through our constitutional rights, we can put in government good leaders who will implement good policies that will transform our communities and nations. That is why we as Christians, we must be involved in politics. We can no longer be complaining that politics is a bad game. We can no longer be complaining that there's a lot of corruption in our governments. The Bible says that we are the light of this world and we are the salt of the earth. We are a city set on a hill. So how can we be afraid of darkness when we are the light of this world? How can we be afraid of wicked people in politics when God has given us power over the works of the devil? And God has given us wisdom. We have to get involved in politics in our communities and in our nations. 3 ways through which Christians can participate in politics. Remember, you don't need to be in government to participate in politics. As a private citizen, as a business person, you can participate in politics. And one of the ways is by you paying your taxes. And when you pay your taxes, you have the constitutional right to hold your elected leaders accountable. The second way is through public debates, that we can influence the culture in our communities. We can influence the worldly culture in our nations. We can influence the culture in our communities with kingdom ideas like equality, justice, righteousness. And the third thing we can do is to hold our elected leaders accountable. In a democracy, power is vested with the people. So we can either re-elect good leaders who will implement good policies that will bring transformation in our communities and nations, or we can, vote out bad leaders. So as Christians, in a democracy, we have to get involved in politics because power belongs to the people and we are part of, the citizens in our nations. As citizens in our different nations, we have to participate in politics, putting the right people in government so that they will make the right laws and implement the right policies that will bring national transformation and economic development in our communities and nations. Thank you so much for watching this video. Please share this video with your friends and family members. We are going to continue next time. Until then, bye-bye.